Greetings, fellow humans. My name's Phil. This series is my hobby Quadcast. I'm calling it a Quadcast because I'm going to make all the episode numbers multiples of 4. If you find that weird and offensive, then you're not going to like the rest of this series and just go watch something else. Roll intro. One of my hobbies is golf. This episode's going to be about that in the context of basically a review of the TruGolf Mini and E6 Connect, which is both from the same company. My only experience with either is using them both together, so you'll have to excuse that. I've owned the TruGolf Mini for over a year, and so this review is not just a review based on the one game you're seeing me play in it. It's all of that experience, but talked about in one playthrough so that you can see what the game is like visually. I want to say a couple of things to put the review in context. First is my handicap in the game is plus 3.1, which is significantly better than my golf handicap in the real world. But as an indicator of how well I can play this game, it's not unfair to say I'm plus 3.1 in this game. You're going to see me shoot something like 15 over through 13 holes in the upcoming footage. That's because it's so incredibly hard to think about something and talk about it while also trying to play golf. And just making this video has given me a whole new level of respect for the folks like Rick Shields, Matt Fryer, Peter Finch, Andy Carter, who managed to talk about golf on YouTube. I don't understand how they can ever shoot, less than 100 while doing that. The other thing to say is the review is going to open with a demonstration of a bug in E6 Connect and TruGolf Mini. This bug was not always there in the first release of E6 Connect that I used with it. It worked fine. However, I reported this bug to the E6 support team over 8 months ago now, and I gave them a video on YouTube showing exactly how to reproduce it and how it happens. Nothing has changed since then. I updated the software 2 days ago when I recorded the footage, and it's still there. So if you're going to decide to buy whether to buy or not one of these devices, I think you should probably assume that that bug will be present and will likely never get fixed. The other part of the TruGolf Mini is a swing stick, which looks like this. It's a rod with a golf grip on one end and a weight that goes click at the other end. You put the capsule thing into the butt end of the grip like that. Then you need to wiggle it a lot and get it to seat properly, or you'll get misreads all the time. And then that's basically it. This is the system. You swing this around. You'll see me using it in the footage, and I just wanted you to understand, in case it's not clear, this is what you play the game with. With that, onto the review. There's a bug in E6 that applies when there's multiple players, but it also can. I have seen something very similar when it's single player game only. I'm going to hit this sand wedge and you'll see how far it goes. So it's gone nice and high, nice and short, about 80 yards. Perfectly normal wedge shot. So now we're going to see the next player. If you look in the lower left corner of the screen, it says clearly D and there's an icon of a driver. So I'm going to set up to hit a driver. And pretty clearly that's not the trajectory of a driver. That's gone about 80 yards. It's the trajectory of a full sand wedge shot for me. But as you can see in this screen, the icon's still a driver. It's just saying I swung a driver and got that trajectory. So maybe I think, that's weird. Did I swing it really slow? I'll just try again. Nope. unless there's Sky It mode in this app, which, spoiler alert, there is not, there's no way that's a driver shot. So now maybe I'm thinking it's a bug. Let's change the club. So click it, click driver. I think so. As you can see from the screen, nothing's different about this shot than the previous two. Except that when I hit it, it goes more like a driver trajectory. Admittedly, not my best swing ever. But yeah, that's definitely not a wedge now. So now we're back on the first player who was using a wedge on the range. Let's just show you that the bug works both ways. So I'm going to set up for a wedge shot, and I'm going to hit a sort of 3/4 chip here. So pretty clearly that's a driver shot with that swing. It's not, you know, if a full wedge is going 70 yards, there's no way a 3/4 chippy one goes 170 yards, unless I suddenly became Bryson DeChambeau. Unfortunately, that bug means you really do have to go into that screen every single time you want to do something. A deficiency in the model that this has for driver swings is that it almost always reports I'm hitting 3 degrees down in my driver swing. I've had a club fitting with a TrackMan, and my driver swing is very reliably 2 degrees up. So I don't believe that for a second, but it means in this game I have to tell it I want much more loft on the driver in order to counteract that effect. At least that error is consistent, so I can somewhat compensate for it. That's one of the things this game is definitely very good for, is forcing you to think through your shots. Unfortunately, it's not super reliable at translating. I swear to you, I hit that less hard than the drive, and it's gone with a shorter club way, way, way further. So now I have, how much up is it? 100, oh my God, this shot's impossible. If this gets anywhere near the green, like if this gets anywhere near the golf course, it's a miracle.
Swing.
I mean, this is what would happen if I was trying to hack my way up a cliff. I feel like the ball flight model is very accurate once you see how the ball's taking off and the conditions it's meant to be in. The flight of the rest of the shot seems like what I would expect if it started like that. The greens tend to be surrounded by quite nasty rough areas and grass bunkers, and so I would rather have been on the fairway, but I'd rather be short of all of that mess. One of the things this game is relatively good for is getting you to think about what shot you need to hit in terms of distance and conditions. The sensor system gets its information about what the club face is doing and how fast the club is moving just from the accelerometers in this little pod on the back of the swing stick here. The issue with that is it has no idea what straight is. It has to work out everything relative to your position at address, and it's got some kind of model based on how fast the club's moving that perhaps charitably assumes that you're at maximum speed at the point you hit the ball. That appears to be not true for me, which is possibly something I should try and fix, but it does mean that the game assumes my club face is more closed at impact than it is in reality, and that I'm more prone to hit draw shape shots than I am in reality. My motivation with this is to try and use it to improve my golf, and I'm hesitant therefore to make changes to my swing that improve how my swing performs on this game that don't necessarily result in being a good thing for my real world golf swing.
Swing.
The other problem, as far as like translating what you do in this game into reality goes, is that there's no information available on what the loft of any of these clubs actually is. So this is called a driver, but I don't know how long the shaft is relative to my real driver, which makes a big difference to how fast it's going to appear to be moving. I don't know what the loft is, so I can't compare that to my real driver. In the real world, I don't carry a 3-wood, I carry a 3-wood that's cranked up. So this is me trying to approximate that in the game. But as I don't know what they think a 3-wood is, I don't know where it is compared to the one I have in reality.
Swing.
There's a few problems related to the nature of the bag they've given you. So we've got driver, as I say, we don't know what loft or length that is. We've got 3-wood, don't know what loft or length that is. And then the next 3 clubs, 5-wood, 4 hybrid and 4 iron. When I've tried them on a range to do a bit of a gapping session, all land exactly the same point and all roll out exactly the same amount. So what's the, no one in their right mind would have a bag.
Swing.
So at the top end of the bag, you've got 3 clubs that are the same as each other. There's no point in having them as separate things. You'd be better off with just any one of them and then 2 more wedges. And then in the irons, we've no idea what lofts they are, which is only a problem if you're trying to translate them into the real world. But for the wedges, I think this could be a really nice way to practice the wedge game. But because I don't know what they mean by a gap wedge or a sand wedge, and there's about 6 degrees of possibilities there, depending on who you're asking. I feel it would be much nicer if the wedges looked like the real wedges in anyone's bag does and just have the loft numbers on them.
Swing. Swing.
So I've said the game is good for making you think about the shot you're trying to hit. And that while you can't translate that from the clubs in the game to your own clubs, because your own clubs are going to have different lengths and lofts, and what this game says is a 4-iron is probably a 6-iron in my bag. That doesn't necessarily matter so much. Every time you play with different clubs, you have to adapt to the different lofts and distances you're going to get. What is nice about this, what has been nice about this game that's actually really helped me, is I had a big problem in my swing with kind of supporting myself on the club head as it rested on the ground before the shot. And in this game there's no club head that can reach the ground, so there's no way I can possibly do that. I have become, as a result of playing this, much more aware of where my balance is at address front to back on my feet. So that has helped me for sure in my real game.
Swing.
The chipping is not super good in this game. Like, I would generally expect to get closer in reality with a wedge shot chip than I do in this game. Putting is appalling. I think limitations of the accelerometers are such that it doesn't really pick up pretty small movements, and then by the time you've made a movement big enough for it to know that you've moved the club, you've kind of whacked the ball off the green to a great extent. So you'll have noticed in this playthrough that every time the ball gets on the green, the computer just makes up a number of putts for me. And that's intentional. I don't want to ruin my real world putting by adapting my putting stroke to this game. Finally got a reasonable driver swing of the day. But in real life, this is the shot I would aim to play, because pin hunting from here is a fool's errand. If you can drop it vertically on where the pin is, then fine, but you're not going to land it there and hold it. There's not enough green stuff. He says, before nearly dropping it on the pin because I slightly pulled that one. I know, it's just a draw and the wind. If we consider it as a golf training tool, it's not meritless. I have used it to fix some problems in my real swing, but it does have the problem that if you optimised your swing to do the best you can in TruGolf and then went to use that on the real golf in the real world, I think you'd do quite badly. But let's consider it as its own game separately from whether it's any use as a way of practicing for golf in the real world. I try to play this game with the shots I would play in the real world so that I'm thinking in a way that's useful for me to transfer to the real world. There's shots you can play in this game that realistically you can't play in the real world. Like, I could set this to driver and max loft, and you literally can't play that shot in the real world unless the ball is on a 3-inch tee, which you can't be if it's in the middle of the fairway. So, you know, it's physically impossible to play that shot, but the game will let me hit it. I try not to do that personally because I'm trying to improve my thinking about the game of golf as it applies to me in the real world, and playing shots that only apply in this simulation is not a good way to do that. But thinking of it as a game, it is pretty nice. The multiplayer mode works very nicely as a social experience. It follows the rules of golf about who has the honour and whoever's furthest from the hole playing first. And so you quickly will get into the hang of take a shot past the swing stick to the next player in turn, and it can be quite a good way to introduce your non-golfing friends and relatives into how golf works. Because you don't need to know all of the rules of golf or the etiquette or, yeah, this is a scary shot in any world, virtual or real. You want to know how to play this, kids. Don't learn it from me.
Swing.
Maybe do learn it from me. So what we're trying to do there is, well, obviously get it in the hole, but it's scary because if you go long, you're in the water. If you go short, you're still in the bunker. It's super intimidating to have in real life. Quite intimidating even when it's only a game.
Swing.
So the couple of flaws with it as a multiplayer game. One is the aforementioned bug that it says your club isn't necessarily what your club is. Or the way the game works, it will show you the last club you hit as the club you're about to hit. It gets a bit worse with multiple players, or a bit more annoying to have to remember to reset your club all the time. Is relatively common when there's a par 3 that your previous approach shot will have been roughly the same distance as the par 3 now is. So it will come up saying you're on a 7-iron and you'll think, oh great, I'll just hit it. And in reality, you'll be hitting whatever the previous player last hit, which is usually some kind of sand wedge. Obviously, if you hit a sand wedge into a par 3 where you really needed a 7-iron, it's not going to go well for you in terms of scoring.
Swing.
The other thing to be aware of, particularly with multiplayer, is this little gizmo is battery powered. Battery on mine, when I first got it, would last 3 or 4 rounds of 2 of us playing. It's now degraded to the point where I can play 1 round on my own reasonably reliably.
Swing.
So the problem with it only lasting 1 round for me is when we play 2 players, it got us to hole 13 of a course, which is, it's a bit frustrating that you think you're going to play 18 holes and you have to stop. This is an example of a hole where it can give you interesting tactical considerations. I could theoretically reach the pin with driver, but I don't think it's going to pan out like that, because it more likely be in the greenside bunker or in the rough, or if it lands on the green, it will bounce off and roll long into some really nasty stuff. Whereas from here, I can say I can hit 5-iron, which takes the water out of play as well. I can't reach that lake from the tee with the 5-iron. With the shot I played, I'll try and knock it past the pin and spin it back a little bit, hopefully. Whereas this gives me 2 pretty predictable full shots and lets me get a 1-putt birdie, hopefully. And I'm going to try and take some of this thinking with me onto a real golf course. That I don't always want to be as close as possible. I'm better with a full shot 9-iron than with a wedge from 40 yards away. So why would I want to be 40 yards away when I can be 120? Synchronized the video of myself and the video of the game with each other, so you can get a feel for what the latency is like. I've actually been very impressed that with this game I swing, strike the ball. So I swing, then I look up and I see the ball flight, and perceptually it's not very far off what happens in the real world in terms of where the ball is and what I can see as I'm looking at the screen, which is nice. The graphics fidelity is obviously quite pretty. The soundscape's pretty nice. I can't hear it right now because I'm recording it for you guys, but normally you can hear birds tweeting, and the varying wind noise does seem to track with the in-game wind theories. As a semi-immersive experience, it's pretty nice. Talk about the quality of the courses to a very limited extent. So I haven't played any of the courses that appear in game personally, but they do have the UK Belfry course, and I was able to play along to some extent with Rick Shields' break 75 attempt. For what it's worth, I scored terribly at the Belfry to about the same extent relative to my handicap in this game as Rick scored in real life. It's a really tough course, particularly in the conditions they had on that day. In the game, I can dial in whatever conditions I want, so I set it up to be as close as I could to what I was seeing on the video, just to see if I could feel what Guy and Rick had experienced, and it was brutal. But as I say, to the extent I've been able to, look at the courses and how they play on this game versus what I've seen other people playing in real life, they seem pretty accurate. And with that terrible drive into the cart path, oh, it could have stayed out of bounds. I'm going to sign off this review and get to editing it. Thank you for watching. I hope that review was informative and possibly entertaining for you. This is the part of a YouTube video where a normal person would talk about their sponsors. As I've said elsewhere on this channel, I'm not going to have sponsors, or at least there's no current plan to do that. But I am going to talk about my friends on this series of quadcasts. And while I don't have any professional golfer friends who I can throw you to, I do have a professional videographer, director who I can throw you to. His name's Daniel Moses. I worked with him many years ago. He's great to work with. He's just updated his show reel. I'm going to link to that at the end screen. And if you need a music video, if you need some short film directed or an advertisement put together, consider him. Thank you for watching. See you in episode 8.